Good morning. It's Mike Romai for Eddie Crow, and welcome to Rappin' with the Reps, monthly program that has been going on for a couple of years now. Our guest this morning from the 10th Legislative District is Aaron Bernstein, and from the 15th District, Josh Kale. Good morning and welcome to both of you.
Good morning, Mike.
All
Good
right.
to be here.
Good morning.
Good to be talking with you both today. I know Josh was telling me before we went on the air that he had a rough night, baby teething. And yeah, there are a lot of parents who've gone through that, the sleepless nights. But let me tell you, as a person of Irish heritage, what our grandparents used to do is a little thing called Irish whiskey. They'd rub a little bit on their fingers and they put it on their gums.
Yeah. For those of us of Greek heritage, it was a little ouzo or something.
Okay. Yeah.
Let me tell you something, Mike.
Oh, boy.
I'm definitely staying out of that conversation.
Well, it's good to have you both on the program today because it's important to have your constituents be able to hear what's going on not only in Harrisburg and across the state, but right here in their home districts. You guys were talking about a function last night, candidates debate.
Yeah, in Newcastle, there was a candidates debate of the governor's candidates and also the Senate candidates. So there's a U.S. Senate race coming up for Pat Toomey's seat that he is vacating. And obviously the governor is term limited out, so Governor Wolf will not be running again. We're going to have a new governor coming into next year.
Okay. So a candidates debate, this was Republicans, Democrats, Independents?
It was all Republicans.
Okay, all Republicans.
I actually didn't get to make the U.S. Senate debate. I was more interested to hear what the governor candidates had to say. We have a very large field right now, and I think in large part that's a good thing. You get to hear a lot of different ideas. You get to see a lot of different perspectives. And I think it's something where it'll make the party stronger by having more options. And it was a lively debate for sure. The venue was beautiful. The Lawrence County GOP did a wonderful job of hosting it. The venue was beautiful, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this race progresses.
How many candidates are there on the Republican ticket?
I think I announced something like 17.
Whoa!
But
I think we're almost approaching 20. And you know, the thing, like Josh and I were talking a little bit before, is we don't necessarily think all those people will actually get on the ballot. You know, we'll see what that shakes out and what that looks like.
And when you have so many candidates, if there were whether there were 17 or even 8 at the debate last night, that cuts down on the number of minutes or the way that you can answer a particular question and talk, because you've got to get all those people in a allotted amount of time.
Yeah, and it turns more into like a forum than a debate, because you're not actually engaging with any of the other candidates. It's more just answer the question 1 minute for each person. You go down the line. But it's still good to see and hear the different perspectives. The Republican Party is a large tent. There's lots of different perspectives, and they all, deserve to be heard. But at some point, and really it's going to come at the point when we see who ends up getting on a ballot. In Pennsylvania, in order to get on a ballot as a governor's candidate, it is a tough task. You got to have people on the ground in counties around the entire state. You got to have 10 different counties that have over, I believe, 100 signatures or something like that in each county, then a total of, I believe, 2,000 plus signatures. And if they say 2,000 plus signatures, really what that means is you need about 4,000 at least plus signatures.
Because they're going to be contested?
Yes, they can be contested and challenged. So it's a rigorous task, and it'll be, once you see who's actually on the ballot, that lets you know who's serious. There's campaign finance filings that you can also see who has energy in the sense that they've been out there working and raising money and trying to get their message out that way as well. So a lot more to come in that race, and it's going to be an exciting spring coming up.
Aaron, who do you see as the front runners, at least at this point, the top 3?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it really depends when you separate the stuff across the entire state. I think Scott Martin's done a really good job. Jake Foreman raised a significant amount of money and make a major dent. Melissa Hart doing, an upstart campaign. Jason Ritchie's been working. I don't know if anybody's worked harder than him out, and he's just really worked his tail off and doing a good job. I think those are 4 right now that are catching my attention and what it is. But a little different, I guess. Than I'm not really interested in the soundbite of candidates. I want to hear specifically what things in legislation they want to pass and they want to get done in order to help the people of Western Pennsylvania. And that's been my focus when talking to each of them.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And Josh, who do you see as the front runners? I mean, because all politics is local, so Melissa Hart is from this area. She has experience in governing in the past. So people in this area may be kind of partial to her, but top three, who would they be?
I think right now, with the way the field is set, I actually think, Aaron, I agree that Jason Ritchie would be there. There's a gentleman who's a state senator from Lancaster County, Scott Martin, excuse me. I think he has been impressive. And one person that I think Aaron didn't mention, but I think is going to be at least in consideration, is Dave White, who is a business owner from Delaware County. I think he's making a strong showing. And Dave is one of those guys that has the resources to be able to fund his own campaign. He is a business owner. He's also a steam fitter that started a contracting company. So I think there's just, it's a dynamic field. People from all kinds of different walks of life. And it shows on a debate stage.
So there's a steam fitter and a business owner, so
Yeah.
he could play both sides
Yes.
of the role. He's been
Yep.
on both issues. And it seems as though they would be going up against John Fetterman?
Josh Shapiro.
Josh Shapiro, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Josh Shapiro looks like
Yeah.
the candidate on the Democrat side.
So, you know, you talk about Corman, you talk about Shapiro, and they both have experience, governmental experience. They've both been in the limelight for a number of years. That experience can be a double-edged sword,
Yes.
as it were, because people say you need to have experience to run for these offices, but then you have a record and people can go back and check it out and say, well, you did this or you said this. How does that work out in your opinions?
So,
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead, Aaron.
Josh.
Go ahead, bud.
Yeah, you know, I think a couple things. Number one, people need to determine what they want in government, and understanding how things operate. I think there is some value in that, no doubt about it. On the other hand, you look at a guy like Josh Shapiro, who has literally never had a job outside of government, ever. And, you know, people need to determine if they want somebody that has never worked outside of, you know, if they want a Joe Biden who's literally never had a job, or if they want people that have had success in the private sector, they're able to implement policies that improve the lives of folks around them. So, you know, those are just decisions that people have to make on their own. I have my strong view on that. I'm not much of a career politician, so, you know, to me, I clearly side on the one, but people are going to have to make that decision on their own of what they find value in.
Mm-hmm. Josh?
So there's two particular points here that I think it may be viewed as being in conflict, but are both very important. One is, and this doesn't get discussed often, it's not, you know, part of the attractive or glamorous part of politics, but there are 253 people in this Commonwealth that can introduce a bill in the House or Senate. 253 people total that can introduce a piece of legislation to actually become law. Governors talk about how they want to change this and they want to do that, but at the end of the day, the governor is not one of those 253 people. Mm-hmm. They cannot pass a bill. They have to have a legislator or Senate. So it is important to be able to work with the legislature. However, I think at this point in time, it is absolutely imperative that we get somebody that's outside the bubble of Harrisburg. One of the things that I see that's very concerning, I've only been there for a couple of years, and Aaron's relatively new to it as well, and one of the things that I see that's concerning is people in Harrisburg, whether it's someone that works for the state government or hasn't had a job outside of Harrisburg or experience outside of Harrisburg, there's a disconnect with reality. Mm-hmm. There really is. I mean, there's a disconnect with how things work in the private sector, with how things work in places like Beaver County as opposed to Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or Harrisburg, because everything becomes a statistic. Everything becomes a focus group. Everything becomes just this disconnect with what's actually happening with people on the ground. I think having an outsider that recognizes what it takes to one, actually get legislation done and build coalition, while at the same time being grounded in reality is what we want to see coming out of this race.
Mm-hmm. You agree, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, I don't need to see data into that.
Mm-hmm.
It's real simple.
Okay.
At the end of the day, focus on practicality and the way things actually operate, or you focus on theory and academic theory. And, I think we need people in office that actually understand in the way things actually function in the world.
If the Republicans win the gubernatorial race this time around, you will pretty much have a lock on state government. You control the Senate, control the House. And so far, Tom Wolf is, in the way of legislation. He's vetoed different legislation. When we talk about politics, whether it's on the national level or the state level, people talk about checks and balances. Do you think that you would be able to convince the constituents that this is a good idea, because Tom Wolf has been a deterrent to many of the programs and bills that you wanted to push through? If you get a Republican in there, you can go, full force and get your agenda passed.
Well, listen, I think very clearly our agenda is the agenda of the people of Tom. And, you look at things at the end of the day. You either support the Second Amendment or you don't. You either believe in protecting life or you don't. You either think that government should spend billions of dollars on foreign spending or you don't. And that's what Josh and I are in Harrisburg continuing to put forth. And we're looking forward to having a governor that will sign these things and make life better for people in the Butler County, Beaver County, Lawrence, and Washington County areas. And that's why we're so focused on these issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think even with control of all three, the Senate, the House, and the governor's mansion, if that were to happen, which just because we were to win the governor's mansion doesn't mean we'd have the House or Senate, particularly with the new arrangement and what's going on in the last couple of months. But if you look at the federal level right now, where Democrats have control of the House and the Senate and the White House, just because you have that doesn't mean there's not ways, and doesn't mean it's easy to just shove something through, an agenda through. We, as our party, had control in the Corbett days, and it was still hard. The Republican Party in Pennsylvania and in the House and in the Senate is a Big Tent party, and we have very diverse thoughts and very diverse views of what we should do, what agenda we should do. There's 203 members, 113 Republicans now, and getting a very concrete, specific agenda item through, when you have so many people that are intelligent people that have ideas of how things should be done, takes time. And there's also ways for a minority party, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, to slow the process down, and that's how the system's built. And to be honest with you, I don't know that we want a system that moves quickly. I don't know if I trust the government or legislators or an administration to be competent to act quickly without having time to think things through and having that time to really develop sound policy.
Mm-hmm. Do we take a break at this point, Curtis, or can we keep going? Okay, let's take a break right now. We'll continue our conversation with Representatives Aaron Bernstein and Josh Kale on Rappin' with the Reps on the Beaver County Radio and the St. Barnabas Radio Network.
You're tuned in to the multimedia presentation, Rappin' with the Reps. Call 724-843-1888 or 724-774-1888 to rap with your representatives. You can also participate by posting comments or questions in the Facebook Live video feed. Today's show is brought to you by the Medicine Stop Pharmacy, the Laughlin Insurance Agency, Beaver Valley Auto Mall, click beavervalleycars.com, and Beaver County Emergency Management Services. And now it's your chance to rap with the reps right here on Beaver County Radio, Facebook Live, and the Beaver County Radio online audio stream.
The best of Beaver County is easy to discover. It's right here on your radio. Tune in this and every Thursday from 11 to 11:30 for the best of Beaver County, presented by St. Barnabas. The show is hosted by Mike Romai and is dedicated to shining light on great things going on right here in your neighborhood and the people that are making it happen. This Thursday, enjoy conversation and insight from an intriguing lineup of guests that are creating excitement and having an impact right here in Beaver County. The Best of Beaver County is presented by St. Barnabas. The radio broadcast will also be replayed each week from 11:30 to noon on Sundays on Beaver County Radio. It's your chance to encounter the best of Beaver County with new show host Mike Romai this Thursday starting at 11. For more information, visit beavercountyradio.com/the best of Beaver County.
It started with a road trip into the American Midwest. Huntington bankers with one mission, to understand how people made sense of money. And that's how we met Jason.
How do I save money? Jars. Whatever loose cash I have at the end of the day goes into the concert tickets jar, the vacation jar. You get it.
And that's how we came up with personalized goals for your savings accounts. Our customers give us the best ideas. Huntington, welcome. Member FDIC. Learn more at huntington.com.
Are you in high school and thinking about your future, or know someone who is? Consider Geneva College. Geneva is a Christian college that prepares students for meaningful service and their life's work. Geneva has over 145 majors and programs, 18 varsity sports, 100 study abroad programs, and lots of club activities. And Beaver County scholarships help to make a Geneva education affordable. Learn more by visiting geneva.edu. That's geneva.edu.
It's Rappin with the Reps on the Beaver County Radio Network and St. Barnabas Radio Network. It's Mike Romai for Eddie Crow. We're talking with State Representatives Aaron Bernstein and Josh Kale from the 10th and 15th Legislative Districts. We're going to have news at the bottom of the hour, but carrying on with this conversation about who's going to run for governor, do either of you see it in your future? I mean, you run a couple terms in the legislature, you win, you're successful, and people start talking to you about, hey, you know what? We think we'd like to start grooming you for that position. Any aspirations?
You want to go first, Aaron?
Listen, I'm on Team Josh Kale for governor.
Oh, get out of here.
And listen, here's the best part. Abby doesn't know yet. But we're announcing his candidacy. My wife's looking at me right now. We're announcing his candidacy for governor and federal senator at the same time. Yeah. Sorry, his wife Abby, but we're just announcing.
Well, you could probably raise that kind of money, couldn't you, Josh?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm very, I really enjoy the district I'm in, representing my district. I really enjoy working in the House. And I think that's, at least for, the next cycle or two or however long, that's what my focus is. Yeah. I enjoy the House. That's where I want to be. I want to accomplish some things there. And Aaron and I talk about it a lot, different policy agendas that we'd like to get through and get done. And as you know, it takes time before you can have the seniority to actually do certain things or get into the positions where you can. And that's where I think I could be most effective, building a team of us from this region and driving an agenda that is pro-jobs, pro-families, and pro-growth.
Well, I'm glad you said Bill.
Eddie, if I could, I just called you Eddie. You're not Eddie. If I could, and I think this was pretty relevant, and I had a conversation yesterday about it, and it was, you don't run for a job because you think the title's sexy or cool. You run for a job because you think you can be effective. And if I thought I could be the most effective in school board or town council or dog catcher, right? That's what I'd do. I think you do what you believe you can be effective in, and then that's where you try to make a positive impact on your community. And I'm very happy with what we're doing and the team we're starting to build here to actually get positive things done in there.
All right, we'll continue on that conversation. Josh, you mentioned building a team, and 8 children?
7.
7 children.
Maybe 8.
7. Who knows? At this point, as of January 13th, it's 7, right? Yeah. So you're building a farm system there. And so when you decide that, your district is a good one, but maybe you want to do something else, are you training, educating those kids to take over? Is this going to be a dynasty maybe at some point?
Highly unlikely.
No.
Highly unlikely. Children have such a unique perspective on this, and I don't know how positive of a perspective it might be having to see all the work that goes into things, the running around. There's a lot of different meetings at night, a lot of time in different places. And that's why, Aaron and I talk about in agenda items, we're investing a lot in this as far as what we could be doing is in the private sector or at home with kids. And the reason we do it is because we want to make a better Commonwealth for our kids and their generation. And if we're not doing the work, then obviously the work isn't important because we're not doing it. So we got to make sure that we're going to do this and drive an agenda that really does promote our region and growth in this area.
All right, so I have to go back, and before we take this break, who won the Monopoly tournament on New Year's Eve?
My oldest son.
So
my oldest son won. For the whole year, I believe he had 13 wins. Okay. And we've had 44 games the whole year. So we during the summer we kind of take a break. But,
sure. Okay.
Which
oldest
is like
son.
26%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how old's he?
He'll be 11 next month.
Okay, so he's got about 10 years before he takes your position. If Mom approves, I suppose.
Mom, I'm going to step in on this one. I can tell you, I know that Josh is Mama Bear in doing that. Peter's mine. So.
Very good. We'll continue with Aaron Bernstein and Josh Kale, rapping with the reps on the St. Barnabas Radio Network. Here's Frank Sparks with the news.
Beaver County Radio's news source. 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, 99.3 FM, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com. Here's Frank Sparks.
And good morning. As your Beaver County Radio weather forecast for today is calling for rain showers throughout the rest of the day with a high of 41 degrees. A hazardous weather outlook has been issued for Sunday night, and we'll get you a complete Beaver County Radio weather forecast right after we have this look at news. Well, PennDOT is placing one of Beaver County's major bridges in the history books. Matt Durzik has the details from the Commissioner's work session from the Beaver County Courthouse yesterday morning.
Just a little over a month after emergency construction was completed on it, Commissioner Tony Amadeo passed along an honor to be received by the Aliquippa Ambridge Bridge.
I just have one thing. PennDOT has selected our very own Beaver County Bridge, the Ambridge Aliquippa Bridge, to be placed in a historic highway bridges in Pennsylvania book that's going to be published this year.
Does money come with it?
No, we know that. we certainly know. But it's an honor, though. It's going to be a book, and the bridge is about to be 100 years old.
It's a beautiful bridge.
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo made his first appearance at a work session in 2022 on Wednesday, following a week off due to personal matters. From the courthouse, I'm Matt Durzik for Beaver County Radio News.
PennDOT has announced lane restrictions on Route 65, which is 5th Street and Mercer Road in New Brighton Borough and Dougherty in North Swickley Townships today and tomorrow, weather permitting. Intermittent lane restrictions will happen on Route 65 between 5th Avenue in New Brighton and Route 588 in North Swickley Township from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. each day as crews conduct pavement core drilling. Flaggers will assist motorists through the work zone. Crews from Armstrong Drilling will be conducting the work. A plan to redraw lines for Pennsylvania's congressional districts to account for a decade of population shifts is advancing in the legislature with a partisan vote that signals lawmakers have more redistricting work ahead. 2 suburban Philadelphia Republicans joined every Democrat in voting yesterday against the proposal. It would reshuffle the state to take into account the 2020 census results that dropped the state's congressional delegation from 18 to 17 members. The schedule is getting tight for lawmakers to produce congressional maps without delaying the May 17th primary election. In Pennsylvania, congressional maps are handled as regular legislation that needs approval from lawmakers and the governor. Federal investigators have been poring over the wreckage of a medical helicopter a day after it crash landed without loss of life next to a church in a residential area of suburban Philadelphia. Somehow it avoided a web of power lines and buildings. Brian Rayner, senior safety investigator with the National Transportation Safety Board, told reporters yesterday that investigators had hoped to be able to remove the wreckage from the scene at Drexel Hill United Methodist Church in Upper Darby later in the day for more detailed examination off-site. Rayner said he was very grateful that the occupants were relatively unhurt in the 1 p.m. Tuesday crash. It's not yet clear when people infected with the Omicron become contagious, but early data suggests it might be sooner than with earlier variants. In general, people with the coronavirus are most infectious in the few days before and after symptoms develop. but some researchers say that window might come earlier with the Omicron. That's because Omicron appears to cause symptoms faster than earlier variants. Some experts say that could mean people with Omicron become contagious within a day after infection, but researchers note it's too soon to know whether Omicron's faster onset translates into earlier contagiousness. Ronnie Spector, the cat-eyed, beehived rock and roll siren who was the leader of the 1960s girl group The Ronettes, has died at the age of 78. The Ronettes' sexy look and powerful voices, plus the songwriting and producing help from Phil Spector, turned them into one of the premier acts of the girl group era. Touring England with the Rolling Stones and befriending the Beatles, Spector, alongside her sister Estelle Bennett and cousin Nedra Talley, scored with hits like Baby I Love You, Walking in the Rain, I Can Hear Music, and Be My Baby.
Here's the Beaver County forecast from 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and 99.3 FM.
A chance of afternoon rain showers today with a high of 41 degrees. Then overnight tonight, a chance of rain showers early and a chance of rain and snow showers towards morning, low 29. Tomorrow, partly sunny with a high of 35. Saturday, mostly cloudy with a high of 23. Sunday, a chance of snow after 1 p.m. The National Weather Service has issued a hazardous weather outlook for Sunday as uncertainty remains with regards to the strength and exact track of the system at this point, which will affect snowfall amounts. They're saying please monitor later forecasts. The high will be 31 degrees. Sunday night snow is likely with a low 22. Martin Luther King Day, chance of snow and a high of 31 degrees. Our newscast this hour is being brought to you by MRS Physical Therapy with 2 locations, one at Stone Point Landing in Bridgewater, the other Route 19 in Cranberry. If you'd like more information on MRS Physical Therapy, go to mrsphysicaltherapy.com. That is a look at the news for now. I'm Frank Sparks, Beaver County Radio News, 95.7 FM and 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and beavercountyradio.com.
You don't have to have had an accident, suffered a sports injury, or undergone surgery to take advantage of the benefits of physical therapy from Dale Reckless at MRS Physical Therapy. At a recent live broadcast at MRS Physical Therapy in Bridgewater, Dale Reckless talked about treatment for the common foot pain condition, plantar fasciitis.
Plantar fasciitis is a pretty common thing, and I tell my patients, don't wait to come and get some treatment for it. The longer you wait, the more chronic it becomes. We'll still fix it, but it'll just take longer. If you come to see me when you're first getting the symptoms, then I can take care of it a lot quicker. What I do with plantar fasciitis is we give some stretches to do. I do a lot of hands-on exercise, and then I also do an evaluation of how they walk and how they stand. They need the hands-on work that I do to help cure the plantar fasciitis.
If you need physical therapy for any reason, choose the place that your friends and neighbors do. MRS Physical Therapy in Bridgewater and Cranberry Physical Therapy in Cranberry. Visit mrsphysicaltherapy.com.
Mike Romine for Eddie Crow. It's Rappin' with the Reps on the St. Barnabas Radio Network. Josh Kale and Aaron Bernstein are with us this morning to talk about what's happening, what the future may be, and parts of their campaigns and their districts. And as we were going into the break, we talked a lot about the gubernatorial race and debates over the past 24 hours. But I read, let's talk about some of the issues going on. I just recently read, yesterday as a matter of fact, that the COVID numbers in Beaver County have increased 99%. What in your opinions, needs to be done? Not only 99%, but the staff at the local hospitals and the local facilities are suffering because they can't get enough people to come to work to take care of these patients. Where are we going with this?
Yeah, it seems with this new strand that's out there, the Omicron, that it's more contagious but less lethal, which is we're happy to see that it's less lethal. You know, I think people individually, each person individually, needs to take responsibility for their actions, decide what's best to do. I think we've heard a lot of advice from government officials, and at this point in time, everyone knows what we're supposed to be doing or what people think we should be doing, and people make their own decisions, and I think we got to start moving on and going forward with our lives. You know, we can't perpetually be living in lockdowns or perpetually not having our kids go to school, having these types of disruptions within our life. there's going to be viruses, there's going to be sicknesses. I think over the course of the last 2 years, we've seen how this has developed. And I was actually told early on by a doctor that he predicted this, that over time the virus will weaken, and that's how it ends up just disappearing basically and turning into a more of a normal type of sickness. And it's just, we can't afford to be shutting things down anymore, to be forcing this or that. We need to move forward and start looking at the future here in Beaver County in western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, this is never going away, okay? And I think that, listen, I'm not trying to minimize the significant medical situations that occurred previously. But, what I do think is, Josh, we have to figure out a way to move forward. People can choose to make the decisions that are best for them and their family and move on. So, that's the kind of stuff that I think that we need to do and focus on moving forward.
Mm-hmm. The best of decisions, as I said, the statistic was 99% increase in Beaver County, and I know when Norm Mitri comes on the program every week, talks about more and more staff challenges and more deaths in Beaver County because of this. Making your own personal decisions, and I have said this many times, my personal decisions were to be doubly vaccinated and to get the booster shot. Now, Josh, you're sitting close to me, less than 6 feet away from me. You have 7 children. I don't know what your situation is in terms of the vaccine or what your beliefs are of the vaccine. But if I had COVID and we were sitting this close and I was asymptomatic, but I gave it to you and you took it home to your 7 children, is that my personal choice or is that your personal choice?
Well, I think it would be my personal choice for taking the risk of coming here and being near you. If I thought the risk outweighed the benefit or the risk was too substantial, then I wouldn't go. And there's times I have avoided certain functions, and particularly early on when we didn't really understand the entire thing. But I just at some point, and I think we're beyond the point actually. People understand how this is going, where it's gone, where it's been, and we have to live our lives, or at least have the freedom to live our lives. And if you'd rather be staying at home, then that's I have nothing against that. It's just your personal choice, Ev.
What about education? We see a number of schools in Beaver County that have now moved to a mandatory mask policy because over the next couple of weeks this is supposed to get even worse. What about that? Is it something that the state legislature should stay out of it and leave it at the local level?
I think absolutely. I think not just the state legislator, but the governors, the administration, that is not a statewide decision. And the Supreme Court actually agreed with us on that one, that he did not have the authority to do so. And I think it's absolutely up to parents and administrations to find a solution that works best for their area.
Aaron?
Yes, same thing, guys. And I think now on the other hand, parents need to be involved in those decision-making processes and go to school board meetings and let their voices be heard. And if the school board isn't implementing the will of the constituency that they serve, then obviously then they'll lose the next election cycle. So, I'm a big believer in local decision-making as much as possible, because what happens in Beaver Falls is different than what happens in Laurel, is different than what happens in inner city Pittsburgh, and every place has their own unique needs.
When in terms of staffing, not the hospital, we've talked about that, but educators, teachers, and teachers, we don't have the problem they had in Chicago, but teachers are absent as well in higher numbers than usual. And did the state decide to expand the role for bringing teachers in? And are those people going to be qualified for educating?
In teaching and also in nursing as well, there's all kinds of different regulations that were streamlined to make the process more efficient so that people could get more influx of workers across the board. It's a challenge. I mean, it's a real challenge, and we're dealing with a serious situation. So there is going to have to be certain adjustments that are made by employers, adjustments that are made by administrators to ensure that we have in-school teaching, to ensure that we can keep our businesses open. And a lot of it is going to, or has, I should say, rather, has required, particularly with retail and restaurants and things like that, us to be patient as consumers, because it's not an easy world right now. Not just because of the virus, but also because of the response to the virus. In some ways, has created a false incentive, or perverse incentive rather, for people actually not to go back to work, and it's given time people to think, and people are more prone now to really investigate what they want to do going forward as far as their livelihoods. So you have this situation where there's kind of a, I guess they call it the Great Resign, or kind of like a reset of what people want to do. When you have time to be at home and to think through, where you're at, where you want to go, there's going to be changes that are made. I think that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I saw a post that you put up on Facebook the other day about PennDOT hiring, and somebody came back and said, yeah, but they're only paying this much, and some other businesses, but you're not going to get people, and this is part of the Great Resign. People say, you know what, you're not paying me, I'm going to move on to somebody who is going to pay me more.
And some, like, that's okay, because at some point they're going to have to get jobs back going. But the problem, the big issue that I think we're having is with inflation, because inflation's eating up more of people's paychecks, whether it's at the gas pump or whether it's at the grocery store. And so you're creating a situation where not all employers can afford the new employees at a higher rate, and services, particularly services that are related to welfare services, those employees certainly can't be making more, because it's based off of a budget. And
same with PennDOT, right?
Yeah, exactly. So,
but they keep raising the tolls on the turnpike.
Yes,
and,
they do.
We're supposed to be getting infrastructure money, which the tolls from the turnpike are supposed to be taking care of the roads and bridges, and now we have to rely on the federal government to send in that infrastructure money. There's just no winning. No.
Yeah, and I think what we've seen with inflation is, more and more people are tired of some of the corporate nonsense that's going on, and it just said, you know what, I'm done. And those are people that are in their 50s and late 50s who said, hey, I got another 5, 6, 7 years to work. They've just kind of hung it up early. So, we obviously got to replenish the workforce, and doing everything we can do to make sure that we're putting people in a position to be trained for jobs and opportunities, and to have that growth, and we want that growth here in this particular area of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, we're talking with State Representatives Aaron Bernstein and Josh Kale. Had Commissioner Jack Manning on the program the other day and talking about the state of the county. Education and employment are still numbers that keep coming up. Educated workforce, we've been hearing this for 40 years. We don't have an educated workforce. We brought people in from other states to work on the construction of the cracker plant. Now we're moving on to the next phase. Are these people going to be educated, Beaver County residents? So you have the problem with education and not having the right educations, and employment. How, where are the jobs? Because Representative Bernstein, you mentioned guns, abortion, and foreign policy in the last segment, but Beaver County is still an economically depressed area, and the jobless rate is still pretty high. So what are we doing to address that?
Yeah, so if the jobless rate is high, it's because people aren't going to work. There are significant job opportunities available for people of all skill levels. We know that. We have a issue of filling those positions, not in you can go talk to any employer out there, and they will tell you the exact same thing. So this is a matter of, if people want to work, opportunity for them to get out and work.
So this is why I think watching and paying attention to the governor's race is so critical, because I think it's absolutely imperative that we have leadership in the State House, in the State Senate, and in the governor's mansion especially at this point, that understands and appreciates the assets that we have in Western Pennsylvania, and Beaver County in particular, with energy, with manufacturing, with transportation, because we have rails, we have rivers, we have the ability to transform these old brownfield sites and turn them into job-creating sites. But we need a Harrisburg that understands and appreciates the growth opportunity for this Commonwealth is this region. And taking an agenda that is focused on those jobs and the family and the growth is something that will transform and can transform this region into, it's never going to be like the old J&L days where you had 15,000 people working at one factory. That's just not happening. It's not the new world. However, if we're not focused on manufacturing and making things in America now, after what we've seen over the course of the last 2 years and beyond that, with China dumping steel and with slave labor happening there, with no environmental regulations in India, China, Russia, if we can't see that the only way that we can do this right and responsibly is to do it here, and now that we have the resources with our natural gas and with energy to do it here, we have to be willing to put together an agenda, an energy policy, a global energy policy for this region to really leverage those assets. That's how we're going to do this. That's how we are going to get us to the next level. Natural gas production has been wonderful for this region. Coal mining has been a big deal for this region. Not so much this area, but more southern part of my district. And then you also have the production of electricity, places like the nuclear plant. Power and electricity, energy, that's what we do here. And we can turn that into the next phase and develop it with manufacturing because we have those river spots all the way up and down the Ohio. And we can transform those old brownfield sites into new facilities. And we can do it because we've seen it. That's what Shell did. And there's sites up and down that river where we could have more projects like that. We can do it right. We can have our people building. And you look at what Shell did, the transformation it did, not just with that region, but they invested millions of dollars in local community college. They have their own program where they're training people at CCBC in order to work at the plant. They're hiring local people for jobs. They have their own fire department on that site. And we have the ability to go there. Over the course of the next 10 years, we have the ability to go there. The question is, are we going to be able to compete with West Virginia and Ohio? And the only way we can do that is if we have a Harrisburg that understands and appreciates the value of this region and the assets we have here.
So, and what's that going to take?
Well, it's going to take regulatory. Go ahead, Darren.
I got this one. I think it's going to take legislators to step up and propose bold solutions.
Yeah.
Josh, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Oh, boy.
Talk about the legislation that you've been worked very hard on with the deal with manufacturing. And then it's going to take leadership from the governor's office to execute on those and then work collaboratively in order to get things done. And that means working with businesses, working with employers, working with our the labor union, people that actually work for a living, and doing those types of things. So, Josh, talk a little bit about your legislation that you did there and what that could mean for Pennsylvania.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think really there's three major things that we got to do. One of them is my legislation is a part of. It's a net operating loss reform, which is tax reform, where basically Pennsylvania is one of two states that has this burden on operators that lose income and how far they can pass it forward and how much. Right now it's 40% they can pass forward losses. We're trying to get it up to 80% because that's where the federal government is. Most states don't even have a cap on it, how you can carry forward losses. I'm getting into the weeds a little bit, but tax reform is one of the major initiatives. Aaron talks about bold initiatives we have to get serious about. Regulatory reform. And this comes from us in the House and Senate, but it also comes from the governor because we need a DEP that can appreciate what's happening on the ground, that can appreciate that their delay on permits is costing us $1.5 billion of investment from U.S. Steel. U.S. Steel just announced this week that they're investing $3 billion in Arkansas. And they're doing that because the state DEP and the Allegheny County Health Department took 2 years to process a permit. That still isn't done, by the way. $1.5 billion was gone because people were at home and just didn't want to go through the process and were delaying this permitting process. That's something that sounds minute. it sounds like, well, that's, really no big deal. But if you talk to a local developer, right now they are more inclined to go to West Virginia and Ohio, which we know isn't far from here, because of simple things like permitting reform, because their tax structures are more reasonable. And it's just, we're going to miss out on the assets we have with transportation, with the rivers and rails, and with the natural gas that we have here and the production of energy, because we don't have a Harrisburg that's focused on kitchen table issues in places like Beaver County, Washington County, where Aaron's at in Lawrence and Butler County. And I'm not just saying this because I care deeply about my region, which we do, and it's important to this region. But I think something that we have to communicate effectively as legislators, and it's one of the reasons why I want to support a governor who's from Western Pennsylvania, and I think we all should, is because we need people that appreciate that, yes, we want to help the people we represent, but for the entire Commonwealth, the growth opportunity, the biggest bang for your buck over the course of the next 10 years is Western Pennsylvania. We can have that kind of transformational change here. We can start bringing population back here. We have the opportunity to, but we can also blow it, and that's real.
And that's something I'm old enough to remember when both of your seats and much of all county government, state government was controlled by Democrats, and that the criticism and the rap on them at the time was, whether it was Tom Corbett or any other Republican governor, we can't get anything done in Beaver County. Nothing's ever going to come to Beaver County because you're controlled by Democrats. You have Democrats in the courthouse, you have Democrats in the state house, and we can't work with them. You're all Republicans now, and you've had Republican governors, and we're still in the same place. We're not moving forward. What's happening? Are we just forgotten? Nobody cares?
Well, I think we did. I'll push back a little bit on that. With Corbett, we did get with Shell coming in, and so that did happen with Republican controls of things. I think also, though, it's important to note it's kind of hard to compare Democrats from 20 years ago to Democrats today, because there is such a significant change in philosophy. A lot of the power in the party back just 15 years ago was from Beaver County, from Greene County, right? You had Speaker of the House and Minority Leader from Greene County, a majority and a minority whip from Beaver County. And today that's impossible because there's the dynamics. Right. And I would argue that the people didn't change that much. I think what changed was the parties changed. And there's a different philosophy, or at least perception, and I would argue philosophy, but others argue perception of what the parties actually stand for. But regardless of party, who's in power, I'm not really, when it comes to these types of issues.
Okay. Pocketbook issues you're talking about.
We got to work with everybody across the board.
And when you're talking about tax reform for businesses and corporations and things like that, the people in your districts may say, you're losing touch with us.
Yeah.
If you give them a tax break, then that's going to trickle down and we're going to have to pay more somewhere along the line. How is it making it easier for me to go to the grocery store and feed my family, pay my rent? I hire a healthcare, or not a healthcare worker, but a daycare worker to watch my kids while I go to one of those jobs that Aaron was talking about.
Yeah. So I think it does actually, there's a debate that we always have in Harrisburg about tax reform and what it means, and we're going to lose this much revenue, it's going to cost this. I think static modeling is very dangerous, where you just look at it and say, well, how much money is the government going to lose if we implement this? Well, really what we need to look at, especially with my bill in particular, because it happens over 4 years, when you cut taxes, when you do that, what happens is companies will invest. When companies invest, what I really mean is there's going to be more jobs in this region for people, and they're high-paying jobs. In the energy industry, manufacturing, they're high-paid, and that's what we're trying to do. It's about jobs, it's about families, it's about growth, it's about keeping families in Beaver County, Washington County.
It's about rapping with the reps, and we're out of time. Aaron Bernstein and Josh Kale, thank you both for being with us. News is next on the St. Barnabas Radio Network.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.